I can start probably. Musaddiq, why don't you go ahead and do a brief intro, and then I will take back and introduce myself and our speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Musaddiq. I've been involved in the pharmaceutical industry for about 16, 17 years now. I'm focused primarily on drug development projects in the early phase, so phase 1 to some phase 3 projects. I've had stints at AstraZeneca, Roche, and Eli Lilly. But in May last year, I joined an organization called Medable that are focused on decentralized clinical trials and provide a technology platform for that to happen. So I'm a vice president there in their DCT solutions group. So my role is understanding how to translate clinical operational protocols into a decentralized solution and identify what the efficiencies are there. So I'm currently based in Abu Dhabi in the UAE, and yeah, very excited to hear about the discussion today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musaddiq Khan. So about myself, I think most of you guys already know, I'm purely pharmaceutical development guy from discovery through commercialization. Have done a couple of adventures and have 4 products in the market. I'm not going to take much of time. I'm based in California, San Francisco, and I'm going to move over to Dr. Junaid Kalia, who is neurologist by profession, by entrepreneur. I always feel comfortable saying that, actually, entrepreneur by heart. The one thing which came to my mind whenever I looked or heard Dr. Junaid Kalia is that our future generation has taken their future in their own hands. They're not depending upon the governments. They want to design their own goals and then work hard to accomplish those. Thank you very much, Junaid. It was really a making presentation. We do have a time. Do you want to go back and emphasize on any of your slides if you want? Because I know you went with the bullet train speed.
No, yeah, that's what I do actually. People get bored now. That's another thing. But I'm definitely, one of the things that I really wanted was, to be honest with you, was looking forward with Dr. Musaddiq Khan's input on this presentation and his input, rather than me taking up all the time. I thought it would be best we have a little bit of discussion as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Musaddiq, back to you. If you want to elaborate on some of the slides he mentioned and how it can be applicable, that would be awesome. I have not seen any questions so far, but please, if you have a question, put in the chat box and we will address it as it comes. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, no, Junaid, thank you for that comprehensive review. And I'm hoping you're able to share the link, right? You said we can all have a look at that neurology pocketbook, because there were some gems in there. And I think, you've covered most of the salient points. One of the things I think just to highlight in my lens is from a drug development perspective and R&D is this is still novel tech, right? And people generally are very resistant to change, as we all know. One of the things that's happened over the past 18, 24 months is, ironically, with lockdown and with COVID, is that it's catalyzed people's, I suppose, perceptions and risk appetite. So from a drug development perspective, and I was at Lilly, as lockdown started, and, pharma has been notoriously conservative, risk averse, understandably so. And, trying to merge it with a kind of demo or die tech iterative culture has been a challenge, right? And it's been happening for a while. Now, what happened with COVID was suddenly all these approaches that previously would have been a nice to have and were new things to try suddenly became the only option, right? So having remote visits, having remote monitoring, televisits for consultations, using remote sensors or wearables to try and keep trials ticking along, making the amendments. So suddenly people had to start trying these things, and and some of those things stuck, right? So the kind of the pendulum for innovation swung one way. And now I think we're seeing with a lot of other things as well, whether it's working from home or whether it's flexibility in working hours, it's how far that pendulum is going to swing back to where it was pre-COVID. And I think it's a similar approach here with having this novel approach to conducting clinical trials. So certainly one of the big things from my perspective, the big challenge is around kind of change management, because we need to approach this new paradigm very much like a change management process, right? So you need to get a few kind of influencers who are, say, within the pharma company, get them on the bus and use them to build the momentum and all of those other things. So I think there's that things are moving in the right direction, but there's still a lot of education that needs to happen. And a big part of that is, I think as Dr. Junaid mentioned, is about the language that we're using and how we're making sure that we're all talking about the same thing. When we talk about a virtual clinical trial, when we talk about a decentralized trial, and what that means, and also that it's not a binary choice, right? So when we talk about a decentralized approach to a clinical trial, an oncology study, you're not going to be able to do the CT scan in someone's living room, right? But what you can do is allow a nurse to come to their house, or allow them to go to a local CVS or something to get some of their bloods taken, rather than have to go to the hospital, to the MSK site, or a large site that may take them hours to get to. So you have this hybrid approach, and certainly that's what we're finding at Medable, that most of these trials are following a hybrid approach rather than a fully decentralized. And then the last piece I think that's interesting, and I'd like to hear more about from the perspective of Pakistan, because I only have a superficial understanding of how things are, but I'm very keen to understand how we can kind of leverage some of this technology. As Dr. Junaid was saying, it's the perfect place to be rolling these sorts of things out, right? If you get the momentum going. And we've got patient populations, we've got digital literacy, we've got the mobile connectivity, and then we've got the desire from the physicians, right? That want to be doing this research and a part of that. One of the things that I'm curious about and has been a challenge in Europe, less so in the US, it's still happening, but as Dr. Junaid said, the FDA have released specific guidance in the past 3 months about embracing novel technology and how to use DCT approaches and digital technologies in drug development. I think if you can start guiding the regulatory approach to be more pragmatic and to be accepting of novel approaches, suddenly that becomes an environment where other people want to come to, right? So we're seeing that in Europe, for example, the Danish medical, the regulatory agency, have also just specifically provided guidance on how to use DCTs. Suddenly, Denmark becomes a more attractive option than France or Germany for a pharma company to go to, right? Because they know that they can start using these more efficient methods. So I think that's one approach to understand. And then the other piece is also just around the kind of the profile of the people that are going to be involved. So a big piece, we talked about the diversity earlier, but the big piece is around how you educate people that this is okay to do, right? And then you still keep that patient centricity. So you keep them at the center of how you design the study and how they participate. The big advantage of being able to use sensors or wearables is that it's passive data collection. So the impact to an individual is relatively low, yet they still provide this data, right? So understanding, even in the US and the UK, some people, they like going to the doctor because they feel that they're going to be looked after, right? And so if you say to them, oh, I'll just do a video call once every 2 weeks, suddenly that doesn't feel the same for them, right? Some people don't like having nurses coming to their house or medical equipment coming to the house because the neighbors say something, right? So it's about understanding how people are going to embrace this. And part of that, I think, is just continuing, and as Dr. Junaid said, so many people already have a wearable or an activity tracker to monitor or to improve their lifestyle. I think if you try and make that as seamless as possible, that they just continue doing a similar thing, that then suddenly becomes much easier and less of a hurdle for them to participate. So I think there's lots of aspects to consider. I think, you know, as just to kind of reiterate what Dr. Junaid said, is there's a significant opportunity here, and I think the timing of it is right. And so, you know, it's absolutely appropriate to be kind of leading the pack on that.
I mean, that was amazing summary. I just want to clarify or maybe challenge a few things, because that's what I love to do. So I never thought in my life that I will be doing digital banking. I mean, the one thing that is as close to health is money, right? I mean, people will die for it, money or health, right? What I'm saying is that I never thought in my life that I'm going to be doing digital banking. As a matter of fact, up till 5 years ago, there was no such thing as a digital only bank. If you look at it, I mean, the history of it, we always had, you know, brick and mortar banks. The reason that I believe that the healthcare moves a little slow, and especially in United States, UK, it is the reimbursement environment. Because the reimbursement has to come from government entities, it has to come from insurance companies, and there's a hierarchy and bureaucracy that is laid on, which stifles innovation a lot, which brings Pakistan and even maybe UAE at a fantastic place where this another D of digital health, which is democratization, comes in. Because when you have that less of reimbursement burden, where you can clearly create a product, you know, and that will be better, people will adopt it. I mean, exactly, Amazon is great because of 2-day shipping, right? I mean, now everyone has to do 2-day shipping, otherwise that's it, you're done. If I did 2-day shipping in medicine, it's not like CMS is going to give me $100 extra. It's not possible. So that's why I feel like, amazingly, Pakistan is at the core of creating some of these digital health technologies. And the biggest factor was cost that has been done. I thank you so much for pointing out that Denmark is definitely also did that, and you're right. As a matter of fact, Germany has a term called apps on prescription. So DIGME. For those who don't know, by the way, so for APPNA people, there are codes from CMS, which you are doing, you know, monitoring, and you get reimbursed. So if you're a physician, please do make sure that you have a pathway to get reimbursed for that. Now there's a pathway from CMS to get reimbursed on patient-reported outcomes. It's $20 per month. So if you can activate that somehow into your clinical practice, that's another good revenue source in America. Same thing in Germany. Germany has a very low reimbursement, but they have started with under DIGME, that's their German term, which translates into English as apps on prescription, literally patient-reported outcomes. If you do that in your clinical practice, right? No clinical trial, no nothing, you as a physician will get reimbursed for it. I agree with the hybrid approach, and I understand that you're saying that most of them do hybrid approaches. And the question is that if you see, especially India has basically done that, labs on wheels and RAD on wheels. So we are seeing that a lot in terms of labs on wheels. I agree that there is a perception issue. There's also pop-up, you know, clinics that can, you know, pop up. Like Nazmabad, you know, there's one pop-up and anyone can come and get their radiology done and labs done for one day, you know, the next time it goes. So we're seeing siteless approaches still. I mean, you may call it hybrid, but still it's quite decentralized still. I mean, you need physical touch points. I mean, you can't take care of patients without physical touch points. But that whole care paradigm, when I talk about digital transformation, is basically this whole unique new experience is still changing. And thank you for pointing out that, yes, Pakistani physicians have been at forefront in desire for creating these trials as well.
Because it's in the direct interest of the doctors as well as in the interest of the patients. I mean, there is no insurance involved. I think potential is high. I have a question for both of you, and I will start. I know biomarkers took a time for FDA to be convinced that they will give you the approval based on the biomarkers. And then they developed even validated biomarkers, means they have been proven, they have like a direct and validated link to the disease. And now you don't need to have those subjective evaluation, you just measure those biomarkers and make the decision. So that has been, but now you are asking Dr. Kalia to take it to the next level, which is the digitalization. So one thought come to my mind was, okay, we know there is an approved drug and we always do the comparator study. I mean, of course, we are testing here new technology, we need to think differently. I mean, if you try to fit the digitalization in the old conventional fashion, it's not going to work. Like the driverless car with the lights, green and red lights, it's not going to work. You need to have the sensors. Okay, that's what will allow to driverless cars to move without having the accident. And the problem is, and this has been always the case, we try to fit the new technology in the old conventional fashion, and it doesn't work. So my thought was just, okay, we need to be a little open-minded. I have a comparative study, okay, which I know a drug works, okay, and I now implement all the digital devices and all that stuff. And then I have my drug, okay. So in one way, by doing reverse engineering, I have validated the use for the proof of concept because that drug is proven to work. And now I use the same technology for the new drug, okay? And that's how the comparator studies are done, right? Those are the blind studies. I mean, of course, I'm proposing the open label study. So there are the opportunity, A, to prove it works. That's always the argument. You can have a regulatory body to convince, yes, we have shown it works with the old drugs, and the indication or data we are collecting there is a valid, and now we can use to make the decision for the new drug. So I think that's a one way to validate. I mean, that's how it's going to start. I will say also, I mean, I remember the generation before me, if you guys all remember how they used to determine the endpoint for wet granulation, they will hold the granules in the hand and then they will open it. So if the granules will fall apart, they will say it's an endpoint. If they stick, you have it over-wetted, okay? And if they are not making the granules, use it, but no more. Nobody puts their hands nowadays in the blenders or anything like that. So we have so many new technologies. So one thing I totally agree, and it's very unfortunate, it's such a sensitive industry, but have been lacking technologies big time. I used to say even the polyethylene bag industry, like when we make the polyethylene bags, you guys all go and do the shopping, there is no hole in it. You can put the water, and in Pakistan, people buy the milk in those, okay? And their thin layer, I mean, it's such a thin, I mean, can you imagine what kind of technology they are using? Unfortunately, pharma industry has been way behind in terms of adopting the technology. I understand one is the regulatory, and then of course the education of the people. So I do have a question here. Somebody was asking like, okay, how we can get in touch with your organization. Please send the email or share the email. We will get back to you on that one. The other was rather comment. I mean, and I can, I'm not cynical or I'm not criticizing. These comments are coming from the old people. New people are not thinking the same way we are thinking. That, okay, oh, I need to get out of my house, go and see the doctor, I feel comfortable. Yeah, 87 guy surely feels that way. The new guy, no, he wants everything on his lap. So things gonna change for sure. So that was the one of the comment, like it gives the opportunity to change the environment, and that's very true. But that should not stop the new technology, because the benefit of the new technologies outweighs those comforts and good feeling, right? So as I mean, Dr. Junaid mentioned, conducting a trial, my goodness, it's a where company sweats and suffers. The recruitment is very low, it's costing so much, and all you need to do is hit the, finish it, move to the next point. So there are the very valid points, Dr. Junaid, you brought, and I'm very happy to say that this is the kind of presentation we need. We are not going to grasp the idea today, I mean, that's for sure, or probably not us, but the new generation will certainly grasp that idea. So those are my comments.
So a couple of things I want to add to. So my daughter does tele karate on a computer, on a TV screen, FYI. Now I had to build a camera on the TV screen because all the class she can see it better. So I would never have thought that, you know, and she enjoys it. I mean, there's once a week. She does her dance classes online now because, of course, Quran classes are online, also in person. The second I want to do is that one of the beautiful things that you brought up, is there any drug on the market that is FDA approved on a subjective endpoint? That is, if I'm going to give a medication or a patient and the endpoint is not left ventricular ejection improvement, you know, is not that improvement of asthma, shortness of breath, NIFs are getting better, vital capacity. These are all objective markers. Is there any drug on the FDA that has been using a subjective endpoint, that is the feeling of patient doing better on heart failure? First time in history, in the last 100 years, FDA approved a drug for heart failure for exactly that. A secondary.
All CNS. So most of the CNS drugs, Junaid, goes through that path. Very
correct. And which was CNS we are okay with, like, you know, but heart wise, like, why would you do that? This is amazing that we are saying these secondary endpoints so important now. And then another thing, right, as far as the validation as you were talking about, another big issue is that we have moved the science too forward, right? I mean, Alzheimer's is a big issue. It's been $50 billion have been spent in the last year. The one medication that came out has been properly, you know, have an issue. How are we going to move this forward? The only way to move this forward is to get baseline data of the patient, early detection, so you can do early intervention. So for neurology, it is absolute must as far as that is concerned. And then last one that you also mentioned is the risk factor. And that's how what Germany has been doing a beautiful work is Germany has basically, you know, done the category 1, which is observation, now going to category 2. And they have a whole pathway that has been designed for the next 5 years in which they're going to implement these different technologies on a step-by-step fashion. So it doesn't look like, you know, Junaid is coming in and saying, you know what, let's do this. And it's not a YouTube channel that you're creating, it's a medicine. So they have a way, proper design way of managing risk in digital clinical trials and digital health technology. So that if anyone is interested, definitely look at the Germany's model as far as this is concerned.
I do have
recently. Sorry.
Please go ahead, Musaddiq.
No, and I mean, I think so. You may have heard about the FDA recently approving a video game on prescription, right, for ADHD, right? And so there's a whole new stratum of digiceuticals that are opening up, right? Non-pharmacological interventions that may be beneficial. I think that the big question now, and you know, this was something that Lilly are very focused on, I know other big pharma companies are, is defining what those validated digital biomarkers will look like moving forward. To both of your points, the holy grail will be to have the primary objective as using a surrogate, right, or a digital biomarker. Now, we're not there yet, even with just biomarkers in general, right? So digital is the next step. The closest we may be is with companion apps, or, you know, in the same way you have a companion diagnostic in oncology, you know, companion apps for respiratory and making sure that, you know, your inhaler is being used properly and smart inhalers and all of those things. But, you know, we want to get to the next stage. And I think if we're thinking about Pakistan specifically and the opportunities that are there, I think, you know, certainly from my perspective, one is to create an environment that attracts others to come to Pakistan, because it's an environment where pragmatism and innovation is encouraged, right? From a regulatory perspective, the whole environment is such that you encourage that, and those companies then that want to develop drugs in that way come to those regions. They specifically look for them. So you have an opportunity with that. I think there's an opportunity, as Dr. Junaid alluded to, with defining the studies, is from an academic perspective, the barrier is low to entry now, right, to use some of these digital technologies. So with the intellectual capacity that exists in Pakistan in the medical community to start running some of these academic studies, and gaining, some of these answers quickly, and creating an environment where it feels attractive to the global companies to come to. And the final thing was more a question for those that are involved in that. Digital technology and telehealth, for example, has existed for a few years now, but penetration in Pakistan has been low. What's the reason for that? What are the barriers? Is it individuals, or is there something else that's causing a low uptake? That's just a general question. I don't know what the answer is.
I don't know the numbers, to be honest with you, as far as adoption is concerned in Pakistan specifically for telehealth. But the question is that anecdotally, of course, there was a lot of buzz in the last 2 years, which everywhere was. You're talking about pendulum swinging and everything, but I still believe that this model, but there's 18 different companies now in Pakistan. There's been massive investment going on. There are, constantly growing numbers of people being seen. But there is, as I told you, in Pakistan, the level of trust is already a slightly low. And the more important thing is that digital literacy is still a big factor in terms of, so the minute this generation of 10 years goes on, it's going to be the same thing. Nobody's going to have a bank account and a physical bank. I mean, you go to a physical bank when you have some big stuff to do, but otherwise everything is going to be digital.
Perfect. Yeah, we are getting very close to the finish line. I do have Dr. Samia Taslim, who has a group of researchers all in clinical microbiology. Would love to be in touch with you. Anybody has a last question, please raise the hand. I mean, you can click at the bottom of the screen, raise hand, and we will give you the mic and you can comment or share.
I just have a comment for Junaid. I'm obviously very much into this field, but the way he summarized, I am kind of proud of Merit and Junaid. I made it very simple.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah. If there is no question, we have 9:58. I will ask Danish to do some close-up remarks. Danish, not on the seminars, not on the educational workshops, more on the entrepreneurs. So just a request. So please to you, Danish. Is he online? I know he was there.
I think he was there earlier, but I don't see him now.
Okay. Dr. Rao, why don't you close the session then?
I think when we started this many years ago, we were more into doing online lectures in Pakistan, hiring faculty from here, not hiring, but asking and do deliver. So we did hundreds of lectures. And then Danish came in and he basically turned into more objective teaching or modules. And then most recently, over like a year and a half, so we have been looking into anybody who's in healthcare technology in Pakistan or outside Pakistan, but want to work in Pakistan. We are focusing on that. And related to that, we have a group of people who are, most of these panelists are involved in that. If anybody is interested to get in touch, so obviously throw an email to APPNA Merit or Danish. But mostly we're looking into anybody who's trying to do anything in healthcare and technology in Pakistan, or is living outside Pakistan, but interested in Pakistan. Please contact us.
Thank you very much. We are right in time. It's at 10 a.m. on Pacific Daytime. Wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Junaid. Thanks, Dr. Musaddiq. And thank you very much, overall. And thank you, everyone who dialed in. Thank you very much for your precious time. And see you next time. Thank you. All the best.
If you save a life, it is as if you saved the life of mankind. Please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel and my newsletter. If you want to get in touch with me, the best way is to go through Twitter or via LinkedIn. Also, make sure you follow the Academy website for regular updates. Thank you so much.